Good afternoon and welcome to a brand new episode of Freewheeling. I am Siddharth Vinayak Parthankar and we are all set to fire out yet another fantastic episode for you because in terms of content, we are of course talking about what we love best, which is our beloved automobile industry. Cars, bikes does not get better than that. And so, without much further ado, let me quickly welcome in our guest today. And here he is, Rajesh Goel, who is from Honda Cars India. Good afternoon, Rajesh.
Hi Siddharth, good afternoon viewers. Super excited to be on the show and I hope everybody is healthy and safe and remains like that.
Absolutely. I think that's the best way to put it because that's the top concern that everybody has. And, I mean, obviously, the current situation is one that has taken everybody by surprise. But having said that, I think now we've had enough time to sort of absorb it and try and understand, just where it's taking us into a whole new world. So I'll start with that sort of cliched question then, Rajesh. The idea of what where we stand today as a country, as an industry, as individuals even is something we couldn't have imagined for sure a few months ago even or a few weeks ago. But having said that, now how do you see it 60 days or more than 60 days in, both as an individual and as a company? How do you see it?
So I think first thing everybody understands and at the expense of sounding cliched, I need to say it's an absolutely unprecedented situation. I think most people, unless you live beyond 100 years, you do not get to experience something like this more than once in your lifetime. I think the as various articles quote, the closest to this is the Spanish flu, which happened in the early 1900s, and that is what it is. Like you said, with 60 days past, there's a lot of data available, a lot of research which has been going on, and there are all kinds of hypotheses which are happening in terms of how one has to carry oneself, how one has to ensure that they are safe, how they have to be cautious about it. But all said and done, I think all governments, including the Indian government, are trying very, very hard to ensure that it does not have a significant enough impact. But having said that, there are no right solutions. I mean, lockdown is a good solution or no lockdown is a good solution is anybody's guess. But I think we have been able to control it nicely. Yes, it has taken a significant enough toll on all kinds of economic activity, but I think maybe it's for the best. And now it is time for, with the government committed to getting economic activity back into action, I think it's time for everybody to work around it with caution, with whatever information is available to ensure that economic activity can work in tandem with trying to control the increase of this pandemic, is how I look at it.
Yeah, that's fair, I think, and I think that's probably the most judicious approach as well, because the best way to approach it is to try and sort of grasp the situation and yet try and make the best of it. Having said that, from a business perspective, obviously things are all over the place, and can't be good. But having gone through it now for a few days, as you start to prepare for the opening up, and we all of course understand that there'll always be perhaps even extra caution as far as the Japanese culture in this is concerned. So, what is the thinking at Honda right now? We have started hearing about some manufacturers starting production, sales even. How are you approaching that part?
So, if you allow me to take one step back, I won't say that we were better prepared than others, but as a Japanese company, as Honda, not quite the same, but we have had earlier two similar experiences in terms of the tsunami in Japan and the floods in Thailand. So, in terms of similarities, our supply chains were blocked. Most of our locations across the world were affected one way or the other. There was very little product available, very little manufacturing which was possible. This time around, it's much more than that. We are sitting at home, working from home, and there's zero product which is available. Uh, but given that, I think we have been kind of preparing for it right from the time the lockdown happened. In terms of all the planning activities, I think in terms of engaging with our associates, our employees, with our dealers, and also with our customers, never really stopped. I think it is very, very important that in uncertain times when people are insecure, it is very important to keep a constant contact with them to keep reassuring everybody. So we've done multiple activities with employees. I personally have had chat sessions with groups of 20 of my associates on a cyclical basis, so that I'm in touch with everybody. And extremely interesting insights came out in terms of some people have learned to meditate, some people have learned to pick up a hobby online. The other people working out and doing yoga seem to be the most common thing which most of my team members seem to be doing. And also
Okay, so we're back on, and that was a nice little break that I managed to, unintended break that I managed to go into. So sorry about that, guys, and thank you for hanging on. And Rajesh, sorry as well, because I know that you were telling us about what everybody is up to, and we sort of lost the connection in the middle of that. So apologies for that, but thanks for being patient and hanging on. We lost you at the point where you said a lot of your employees and colleagues are doing yoga.
Yeah. So, I've been in touch with almost everybody in my team on a sequential basis. And one common thing which came out is a lot of people are doing yoga, many people are working out. A lot of people are trying to catch online hobbies. I know a few who learned meditation, trying to learn guitar. In fact, my elder son also is trying to learn guitar online. Second thing is to catch up with dealers. So I've been in touch with dealers on Skype meetings, on WhatsApp, on telephone calls, trying to get the pulse of what's happening in the market, what they're feeling, and we are trying to then take actions based on what they are saying. As I talk in terms of what's happening now, that the opening up is happening in bits and pieces. I think on the sales side, as we talk, I think close to more than 200 dealerships of Honda are open on the service side, and a slightly lesser number for sales. On the factory side, we have two plants, as you know, one in Tapukara in Rajasthan, close to Bhiwadi, another in Greater Noida. So the Tapukara plant started off engineering products and now it's cars. Interrupt is still showing a bad connection. I hope my viewers can hear me.
Yeah, we can see
And
you and hear you.
the Greater Noida plant was close to a red zone, so we are still waiting basis this as to exactly when we can start production. But we have started activity on the Tapukara plant and moving progressively to start production of cars as well.
But do you already have a sort of date in mind, or is this still a fluid situation?
You see, there are three challenges which everybody is facing. I
Hmm.
think one challenge is to get your manpower in. So we have had a complete track of all of our manpower, be it office staff or be it people on the shop floor. And in terms of where they are, whether they are staying in red, orange, or green zones. And we had made a sequence of planning that we'll start production with everybody only in the green zone, move to orange and then to red. And that also gives us a chance to kind of get accustomed to the norms which the government has given us, including distancing and aligning the process accordingly. But unfortunately, what has happened is all the manpower which was closer to the plant has all come in from the past 1 week or so, or more than that, in Tapukara. But the manpower which had gone back home to closer neighboring states will start kind of flooding back in now. And the second challenge is supply chain. So as we speak, we still have some 20 odd suppliers who are waiting to get permission from their local authorities to start production. So once both of these are lined up, we would like to start production. We would not like to want to get into a situation where we start 20% and we stop and we start again. Better to start at a lower pace but keep going so that the processes which have been modified to adapt to the government norms
Yeah.
get matured and we are able to produce an A-class quality car in line with what we were doing before this. So with that in mind, we are still trying to figure out exactly what date we can start, but hopefully we're able to start production.
Okay, and same thing will of course apply then to Greater Noida as and when, isn't it?
Yes, that's true. That's true. So with as we speak, Greater Noida, because it also houses our head office, we
Hmm.
are. I think today we had a checkup of all the norms on the office side in terms of partitions, in terms of creating spaces between desks, in terms of meeting areas and everything. And I saw photographs just half an hour ago, and I think it's a great job done by our team. And basis that we will have what we call a safety declaration soon, and at least the office operations will start very soon, depending on the movement allowed up to Greater Noida.
Yeah.
If not, we will start with Greater Noida local manpower,
Hmm.
and then maybe move as the next step to production as soon as, like I said, the supply chain and the manpower situation gets clear.
In fact, I was going to I was going to say that you should have sent us those photographs. We would have liked to see them as well. But speaking of which, the interaction that you mentioned, both with your teams, your dealers, uh, it's not easy, obviously, to be able to do this as we've just experienced too. I mean, connections are not always great. So, having said that, has that been a big challenge, or you think now you've kind of gotten used to this as a new normal?
Uh, I think it has been a good change. When I say that, I think you need to bear in mind I work for Honda. It's a Japanese company. We're a nuts and bolts manufacturing company. So lots of things which we've experienced after the lockdown may have been run of the mill or normal thing for IT companies.
Hmm.
But I think it's a good thing for people in companies like ours to realize that this is also possible. This is also a way of working. And I personally, in my head, have a kind of uh, 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 what to say, categorized into three phases. The first phase was for a manufacturing company employees to work from home. It was euphoria. Great. Now I can work from home. Fantastic. And after that, people realize that the work from home is not that simple, and actually you end up working more because for every small thing you need to get onto a video call like we are doing now. And second is because because you're working from home, everybody just assumes that you're only a call away,
Hmm.
without respecting your personal time. So now people are getting a little irritated and upset with the concept of working from home as to my time or personal time has gone away. So I, in my head, am now working that if this were to become a new normal, then this normal has to also have some norms that this is what we should do, this is what we should not do, and this is how we have to ensure that work from home becomes a good motivational factor for people, and it also becomes a new normal even if you're not doing it daily, once a week or twice a week. Is I think a debate we will have as we go along and see how we can work on it. Of course, there are normal irritants like we had the call getting disconnected, or you're constantly saying, "Can you hear me? Can you see the presentation?" And we've tried to work around that by sending presentations in advance so that people are watching their own presentation on the screen rather
Yeah.
than sharing, and so on and so forth. Those are things that you learn. But I think biggest learning has been for me. I mean, very difficult to admit on screen, but I am a complete herd as far as IT is concerned. Assuming that my entire family, my wife, my brothers, my wife's brother, all IT people. But now I am quite pro at arranging and doing everything to do with video conferencing. We call it TV meetings in
Yeah.
our parlance. At doing it, and I'm doing 8, 10 of them every day.
So now you're a pro, and maybe we can
Yeah.
learn from you as well, because it's something that's going to become almost like a required skill set perhaps going forward, because this is going to stay, right? I mean, I think even when things open up, a lot of people are going to continue to work from home.
So I think this was true for IT companies earlier. Maybe manufacturing companies had this mental block, and this lockdown helped break it. That of course, because we have to produce, people who have to produce, they have to be where the production plant is. That's a given. But having said that, for office staff, unless you have a need to be supervising people who are producing, it should be perfectly okay to be working wherever you're working, as long as the work involves correlating various things with people or talking to people, or getting things done by instructions. So I think where you are should not stop work is, I think, one big learning which we figured out,
Yeah.
and maybe many years later to the IT companies.
No, and absolutely, I think we are the living proof of that as well. Because even with media companies, it's the same thing. We've been able to, churn out a lot of content despite all of us working from home, and we've taken the call that we'll continue to work from home for some more days still. So, lots of reactions, by the way, and lots of people wishing you and saying hello to you. So I must acknowledge that. Uh,
Hello, everyone.
there's a whole bunch of people who have joined in, and so I can't possibly name all of them, but there's the most recent message is from Veera Kishore Reddy, who says, "Thank you, Rajesh Goel san, for all the support to associates, dealerships, and by connecting to us via Skype, WebEx, Zoom calls, etc., to motivate. Great support, and also by paying advances to dealers and salaries to all." Was that part difficult?
Everything is difficult. I think, the one thing I keep telling everybody, my team and including my dealers, is this is a situation. The uniqueness of the situation is this is universal to every country, every location, every industry. So it looks very nice that you are looking at somebody else for support. I mean, without getting into political discussions, but every day we are reading about support package by the government, not government, but everybody is in a similar situation. So what you have to do is get your heads together and figure out how you have to overcome this crisis. What is it that you can do for yourself, and what is it that you can do for your partners? I mean, the underlying fact of our business is there is no car maker without our network, and there is no network without the car maker. So we figure out how to do it together. What are possibilities, including possibilities for me, given the tough situation that we or all car makers are in. And having said that, I think we'll have to learn to live with some kind of pain at least all through this year, through the all through this fiscal year, and hope it eases beyond that as we get into the next financial year.
Okay, that's of course I think the best way to approach this as well, because it's probably the most sound advice that you can give to any of your associates or channel partners. One last thing, I think, before I jump into the topic that I know everybody here wants me to jump into, and that is that when you talked about it, and again, without any view of taking this in a political direction, would you like to see some kind of stimulus coming specifically for auto companies or auto component makers or any part of the auto value chain?
You see, a stimulus is always good. If I were to get into base economics without sounding like Rajesh Goel, without sounding like Honda, when demand is low, I think the best thing to work is some stimulus which helps the to kickstart demand. Now, whether you want to call it an incentive, whether you want to call it a stimulus, is choice of words. But the fact is, like I said, the situation is universal to everybody. So, without trying to sound very gracious or grand, to expect that somebody has money kept aside and which can be given to the auto industry also is not a very sensible thing to assume. But having said that, if anything which can be done to kickstart demand, obviously that's the happiest situation for not just us, not just the industry, but economy as a whole, because we've got to get the consumption momentum going, which is a fact for getting things going.
Okay, fair enough. And now, yeah, without much further ado, guys, I know many of you have lots of product questions. I can see all of them popping up there on the chat window. So let's go. Let's start talking product, and let's bring in the one big topic which I know everybody wants to know about, and that is the new city. I think there's been a lot of anticipation. You did start the sort of process before the crisis hit. So we always knew that it was coming, and I think people have started talking about it. We've done enough and more stories about it. So what is the position on the new city?
So I think to take one step back, I think city in India is Honda and Honda is city. That is how
Absolutely.
old the brand is. Without sounding boisterous, I would also like to say the city is in many senses the one which created the sedan segment in India. So to say, and it's always been a very valuable brand or car to own for many people or most people, if I can use the word. With the new city, I think you're aware, we were on the phone before the lockdown happened. We were getting ready to get into what we call the media test drive, and we had to call it off at the last moment. So with that, I think you having experienced so many media test drives of so many products can actually back calculate to figure out exactly when the launch was. So we do not intend to delay the launch, but the lockdown period, plus because as I mentioned earlier, when we start up, the ramp up is going to be slower. It is not going to be like this, and we can't start at peak level like we were with before we closed down. So that is going to have some significant impact. But if I can use the word, it is almost round the corner, and once we are able to freeze the date, I'm sure we'll be happy to announce it to everybody. And I think there have been some media stories where people have picked up from the launch of the city in Thailand, and I'm sure people are excited with the beautiful new car that it looks, completely stunning. And I hope it is creating a lot of anticipation, which makes the launch happy event for me.
Oh, for all of us. I mean, I can't wait to drive the car that much. And you know me well enough to know why I'm saying that. I'm sort of itching to drive it. While you were answering, by the way, I know you were showing us the projection with your hands, but we had cut to the video of the new city.
Okay.
And so people were feasting their eyes on how nice the new car looks. But you might want to do that again because
So what I said, the ramp up is going to be slow, and it is going to take 4, 5, 6 weeks.
yeah.
And it's not just us. I think you've read multiple newspaper reports about all car manufacturers in terms of the numbers that they have in the first 1, 2 months. And you need to have an X number of cars at dealerships for registration, etc., before you start launching the car. So that is what we need to work out closely. Other than that, in terms of number of days after the test drive, that remains constant. And I still like to use the word is around the corner. We like to do it as quickly after the lockdown as possible.
And notwithstanding, I mean, the media part is now obviously not the important thing. Getting the car to the customers is obviously the paramount of paramount importance to you. In terms of preparedness for rolling out the car from the plant, once things obviously resume in terms of production, the kits, the parts, all of that, how quickly can you instantly begin rolling these cars out?
So you see, on the production side, if you ask me, I can start making the city as quickly as is possible because that is the stage we had reached before the lockdown started. However, coming back to the point that you made in terms of getting the car to the customer, so you need an X number before you launch a product so that every customer who intends to go to the dealership can actually go and have a look at the car and buy one if he intends to do that. So that ramp up is going to be slower given the situation that I mentioned to you earlier about starting up on the plant and start at a lower place, try and stabilize processes at that level, and take it up one notch higher and then another notch higher. So that may take a few weeks, and basis that we'll try and fix the data as quickly, like I said, as possible. I am actually in a greater hurry to launch the city
Yeah.
than possibly some of the other people.
That's understandable. I mean, it's like you're itching to probably take this new baby to the market, right? Because
Yes.
obviously there's a lot more on that car as compared to the earlier one. But speaking of which, the earlier car and every city that has ever come, any generation, they've all been so immensely successful. As you said perfectly, in India, Honda is the city and city is Honda. I mean, can't be put more succinctly than that. Is there a have you already sort of phased out the old car, or do you still have that in the market when this one launches? What is the situation with stocks?
So interesting that you asked this. I think this is the first time. I think okay. Before that, I'm sure you and most of the viewers who are viewing would have read that the current city, the fourth generation as we call it, is also BS6 certified,
Hmm.
and we were
Yeah, I remember
selling
that
the
happening.
BS6 certified
Yeah.
current city before the lockdown happened. So technically we can keep producing it, and we intend to keep offering the fourth and the new fifth generation city parallelly to offer a wider choice to the customers across variants, price bands. And also there has been a demand from various people, it happens almost with every generation of city, as to why do you need to discontinue this. So keeping respecting that opinion in mind, I think we intend to be running both the fourth and the fifth generation of the city together, so that customers, depending on who likes what and what price point suits which customer, we have a greater option available to satisfy all our customers.
That is, I mean, like I said, that's significant. It's interesting because you said you've never done it with any of the earlier generations of the city. When you say different price points, are we to then assume that maybe some of the higher variants of the older city would not be on offer? It will be more of the lower variants.
You see, I would not like to comment on specific variants, but I think when I said offering a choice across various price points, that itself is what I think you want to know.
Yeah.
But I think City has been a car which is, again, without sounding boisterous, it has been a highly desirable brand, and it has been a kind of a benchmark, so to say, a car which everybody wants to drive in that segment, and therefore most customers of the city in any generation have always preferred to own a kind of a loaded version. So I do not obviously intend to sell a bare version of the Ford City just to keep the price point low. That is not the intent. But having said that, I would limit myself to this for this question as of now.
Okay. No, but this is an interesting point I think you make, because a lot of people see that as a very premium sort of a product, and so having like a stripped down bare bones version kind of goes against what the city stands for. So there I agree with
Absolutely.
you completely.
Absolutely.
The city itself, I mean, the last generation is where we saw the introduction of diesel as well. The portfolio kind of expanded. Going forward, petrol, diesel, how do you see that segment panning out? And specifically for a city buyer, do you see a particular...
Are we connected?
Okay, yes, we are reconnected, and I think it's definitely Murphy's law at play here today, because we don't have this ever happening on freewheeling in the past. But yeah, it's not just buffering, Lokesh, and why are we not speaking, and what happened? Well, all of you who are asking these questions, I promise you that this is not intentional, and I can tell you the truth. Power cuts. We are experiencing power cuts where I am, and so it's at my end the problem, and which is how the connection was lost. We are back, Akhil. Thank you for that, and I do have Rajesh very patiently bearing with all of this as well. He's right here back with us as well. So sorry about that, Rajesh San. I think
I must tell you that today, Siddharth and I have experienced all kinds of Murphy's laws. We were trying to have a trial just before the show started for 10 minutes, and before which
yeah.
my power started playing truant, going in, coming out, Wi-Fi going in, coming out. Fortunately for us, I was able to, log on just before the time, and now it's happening at Siddharth's end.
And
So
it's
whilst I can say thankfully not my end, but still sorry for the interruption in the show to all the viewers. My
No, I,
apologies.
I really feel terrible about it. And the worst part is it's not just all of them, but even for you, I know we were in a sort of a flow and a rhythm, and it's not fun when that breaks. So sorry about that. But
By the way, I've taken off my headset because I got a few messages from friends that your voice is echoing. So I hope it is better now for the viewers.
so actually, let's ask them, guys. Can you please tell us if you can hear him better now, or was it better with the headphones? So please tell us. We can hear you clearly though. So I mean, at least I can.
Yeah,
So
thanks.
we'll see what people say. But I was making the point about IV Tech and ID Tech on the city. And that's where we
Yes.
got broken off. So your answer to that.
Yeah. So, so in terms of, so it's a highly desirable listing. So sedan, our studies tell us that yeah, sedan segment as a percentage may not increase significantly as we go along to the next 5 6 years, but in absolute numbers, those numbers will still keep going up, assuming that the market is going to be increasing at an average of about 7 8% after we recover from the current pandemic. That is. So that is one part of the story. Second part of the story is in terms of diesel. I think the Honda diesel is a very peppy engine. City with a diesel is a beautiful car to own. I personally love driving the city with the diesel. And therefore, the new city, we intend to keep both in the petrol and the diesel. Even though the percentage of diesel customers for Honda is not very high, but I think we believe customer is the king. They decide what is the product we have to be offering, as a result of which, we decide to continue our diesel, and the new city fifth generation would be available both in the petrol and the diesel.
And when you keep the fourth generation in the market, will that also continue on diesel and petrol?
So the fourth generation, the BS6 is available only in the petrol,
Yeah.
and that's how we intend to keep it.
Okay. So that will be petrol only.
That's right.
Okay. The other obvious question, of course, when it comes to the city is, when it is a new generation, there's a lot of expectation always on how it improves on the previous car, what extra it brings in. So without giving too much away, is there, one key area you feel, based on customer feedback or based on, how you were approaching the development of the new car, that you feel very excited about with the new model?
I think I I am not sure how much I should be revealing at this point in time,
Okay.
given that my friends like you are more in the know compared to me in terms of getting information from its launch in Thailand, etc., etc. But and therefore I have very little except for the price and the variant mix to talk about the car. But I'm sure there will be some surprises for the customers, and let's keep it like that. However, two things I would definitely like to say: it's a bigger car, and I think it will be even more pleasurable to own and drive as a sedan. And I think it has clean, straight lines. So in that sense, the design language is interesting, unique, and futuristic, which is what the people are going to just love about it.
Currently, we are seeing a lot of products, not just necessarily in this segment, but in a lot of segments, there's a lot of talk about connected cars and internet connectivity within the cars. At Honda in general, this is not specific to the city. This is just a general question. How do you view that, and what percentage of your buyers do you think would look for something like this from you?
You see, interesting you bring this up. My understanding, and I would be happy to be corrected if I'm wrong. I think we were the first company to launch Honda Connect
Hmm.
in India in a limited way, and we have a good population of about 20 25,000 customers who are adopted for Honda Connect. Uh, what is important to know is one is connectivity as a talking point.
Hmm.
That look, my car is connected. But second is in terms of what is it offering to the customer. And I think going forward, whether somebody likes it or not, but your car also becomes your personal space, where you are able to do various things that you would have loved to do either in your office or at your in the freedom of your own room. So in that sense, connectivity is here to stay. How quickly it catches on would depend on, I think, obviously prices, the offerings, and the real tangible benefit to the customers. Because limited amount of connectivity these days happens through the AVN or the display audio itself, where you can connect your phone. The Apple CarPlay or the Android Auto is available, and you can scroll through the screen seamlessly. And in our cars, for example, the Civic and the CR-V offer it on even on the meter. So those features are already there, but connected in a more effective and significant way of making life convenient for the customer is something which is here to stay and is going to catch on as the car market develops in various ways.
Okay, but would you look at embedded SIM kind of cars? I mean, is that something that you're looking at in a big way?
I do not think there can be a direction of not doing it. How much from what models is something which I can't comment on now. But if that's something that the customer wants, I think that is what you intend to do, because if it gives convenience to the customer as he is enjoying the experience inside the car, and I'm not talking about driving alone, I think that may be a requirement as we go along.
Well, luckily, I'm quite confident when it comes to the driving part. I mean, when it comes to all Honda cars, they're always fun to drive, and that's always at the heart of everything. Which, as you can understand, I'm a little biased. That becomes like my number one priority, but
Thank you.
but it's reassuring. No, the reason I ask is also because the entire portfolio, right now, yes, of course, BS6 was the one huge transition. So just clarify for us that you'll continue with all these cars in BS6. I mean, even a car like the WRV, for example, it's been extremely popular. It's actually kind of surprised many in terms of how well it did in the market and how it's become like a second ambassador in a sense for you guys besides the city.
So you see, like I said, I think we very strongly believe it is for the customer to decide what he wants manufacturers like us to do. Obviously, you need to keep looking at solid business cases to take decisions, because a car industry is definitely not a low investment industry, and therefore everything as business you need to constantly keep thinking about how to match customers' requirement and still make good business out of it. Said that we had taken this call much early on, that diesel is a choice which the customers as of now want, until such time that it significantly comes down or the customer's preference significantly change. I do not think we are the people to decide to offer or not offer a choice to the customer. Having said that, I think Honda has been known more for our petrol engine, and that's the preference of the customer. And we have a significantly, not significantly, but we have a very different percentage of breakup between petrol and diesel if we go model to model.
Yeah.
So, for example, the highest percentage of diesel that we have, like you mentioned, the WRV, it was close to half and half, and therefore we intend to continue with the diesel. The city, like I said, the new city will have both the petrol and the diesel. We've had percentages at various times anywhere between 20 to 25%, and that's also a segment where it makes sense for us to continue with the diesel. Coming to the Jazz. So Jazz, our diesel, we had the diesel, but the diesel percentage was minuscule. It was minuscule. It was low single digit, and therefore it did not make sense for us to continue the diesel. And the Jazz, whenever we launched the MMC, the teasers of which you're looking up on various social media, this thing, is where we would not have a diesel. So that is how we decided. Wherever we believe the customer has kind of demanded it from us, that look, guys, I want a diesel, we have tried to give that offering. And wherever we believe the customer has intended for us that look, we are happy with your gasoline or petrol, and thank you very much. And so we decided to discontinue. And that's been the thought in terms of how our lineup is going to look in BS6 between diesel and petrol.
Okay, fair enough. And you mentioned the Jazz also over there. And in fact, while you were talking, we were also looking at some of the visuals of the WRV, because there are some changes styling wise. The headlight, tail light. There are some updates, and of course, BS6 is the biggest update on the WRV as well. Two quick questions that instantly come up here. The first is about the WRV. The second is about the Jazz. So I'll ask you the WRV question first. At the time when you launched the car, I remember speaking with some of your colleagues and saying how come there is no automatic variant, because firstly Honda established automatics becoming popular in many ways with the City CVT way back when. I think it's like 4 generations ago almost. But having said that, the WRV was always manual only. Uh, Given the kind of shift that we've seen, especially with urban buyers, why only urban, even tier 3? Do you feel the need to have an automatic WRV? At least maybe it's not this generation and the next generation.
So I think let me answer this question in two ways. I mean, obviously, in these shows, I don't know whether I'm allowed to have a personal opinion, not a Honda opinion. If
You
you
can have
ask me a
both.
personal opinion, obviously, like I said, the customer decides, and if the customer wants an automatic SUV, I think it is the responsibility of every car manufacturer to respect the wishes of the customer. Having said that, right now I do not have a plan to do so in the immediate future, as in the next few months or something. The reason being that when we had started planning for the WRV, and I remember that was before I had left from here, is that at that time people were kind of looking for a sense of exhilaration from driving the manual out of the SUV, and also because at that time that was the time when a huge diesel shift had happened, and we had the biggest gap between the prices of petrol and diesel. And most people who were planning for SUVs, etc., were planning for the 90% diesel, and you planned your volumes accordingly. But having said that, you were not really sure whether people would be happy to have an automatic there or not, and that's the reason why it is not there. Obviously, there would have been some technical constraints also, which I don't intend to get into these at this show. But like I said, going forward in the next generation or whenever we consider, depending on what the possibilities are, if the customer demands, it is our responsibility to look at that, and that's the only thing I can say as of now.
Okay, that's fair. And in any case, there are many other questions where I know that you're probably not going to give me the answer that people want, because a lot of people are asking very specific questions about future products. And I'll appreciate that there's only so much that you can talk about when it comes to the future products. Harsha is asking about the HRV. Again, that's another very common question that keeps coming to Honda. HRV.
So I think HRV in some parts of the world is also called the Vessel. I think it has been a very, very successful model of Honda globally. Uh, uh, we have looked at HRV for the Indian market in the past, but given the preferences of the customer, the price points which the customer wants to look at, currently there are no plans for the HRV for the Indian market.
Okay.
Going forward, as new generation of HRV etc. come in, and depending on the design language and the price points of the product, if the suit Indian requirement, we are obviously happy to look at based on the results of research. But as of now, there are no plans to launch the HRV in the Indian market.
Okay, fair enough. And now can we quickly clear the air on this so-called ZRV that's been doing the rounds? I mean, I know I spoke to you about this, and I know what you're going to say, which is kind of amusing actually.
So the first time I heard of ZRV also was from the same source that you heard it from, and then I asked people to clarify. Frankly, I would have been happier if I had a little more, confirmatory kind of a statement to make here. But I have tried to explore it, and nobody within my know in the Honda the circle is aware of ZRV or the model which is there. And as and when I have something, I'm sure I'll share. The first thing I'll do is share with Siddharth Patankar, and viewers, please take it on from him.
Okay, I'll hold you to that, of course. But the reason I think I'm more interested in asking you this is not for the obvious buzz that it seems to have created, and obviously a lot of us carried that story. But the amusing part was what you told me. That look, I think you know more than I do. But the reason why for me it becomes an interesting conversation topic is because to some people, yes, the WRV fits in as your subcompact offering in the SUV space. To some people, it's not. It's not SUV enough. So to have an even greater play in what's obviously a massive volume segment and also a very high growth segment, just purely from that perspective, having another SUV product could be good for you?
So you see, I think we have said it time and again, and including Gaku-san, who's our president, has said it in multiple interviews that we have a complete sedan lineup, but we need to do a little more work on the SUV space. Having said that, we do realize that it would have been not just a little more work, but if it had been quicker, it would have been better. But having said that, we do admit that a little more work is required, and what would be the better product at what timing is still something that I can't comment on right now. But I take the feedback in all humility and with whatever we believe we can take and needs to be done. And basis that we will incorporate that into our actions. Yes, please, all I can say as of now, please allow me to get away with that today.
No, that's fair actually, because it's also a very honest admission that, obviously the SUVs continue to dominate the market. They're also the high growth segment areas, and which is why I think all these questions come up, right? I mean, ZR-V is brand new, completely left field, but that's why I think the HR-V keeps coming up, because if you look at the high growth segments, it is the subcompact SUV and it's the compact SUV. And while I know in the past you had a BR-V, now currently as things stand, you have the WR-V and then you have the CR-V. So there is like this massive amount of space in the middle that you can really play with.
Yeah, so you are right, absolutely. So coming back to the point that I made earlier, we have a complete sedan lineup, and I think best, given the current market, best is to have a similar lineup in the SUV space. And I wish I can say more than that today, but like I said, we are committed to looking at that, and hopefully things will happen.
Okay, no, that's fair, and I think we're just happy because I know for a fact that these aren't small decisions. You won't take it lightly, and the fact that there are a lot of you looking at it right now, we understand that obviously there's a focus, and let me say that you have actually said a lot, but when you say that SUVs obviously needs to be a focus area just like sedans used to be. So I think that speaks volumes in any case, no pun intended. So you wanted to say something.
Yes, so I just want to say, you see, we are a little, I mean, to admit in front of viewers may not be such a great thing to do, but we are not, we are a very conservative company. We do not want to have a huge model lineup just to be catering to where we want to do whatever we do nicely and to be happy, to keep our set of customers happy. I'm sure every brand has a customer, Honda has a customer set, and they have certain expectations of the customer from Honda. And unless I'm able to fulfill that just to launch a product because that is a Me Too product or that's the segment which is growing numbers, is then you are just unnecessarily just competing for volume, which is not what we intend to do. What we intend to do is we intend to keep our customers happy, and we are very focused on our current set of customers in addition to getting new customers. We always believe they are the biggest brand ambassadors, and I have to keep them happy with all my future offerings to ensure that they are able to get the same very things, characteristics from my products going forward, which is what they experienced when they had owned it earlier.
That's fair.
That is something very, very important for us.
That's fair, and I think that's also probably in the long run the better approach, the better attitude to have. Three questions which are kind of related to what exactly you're right now saying to us, and while they may not be identical, I think they kind of tie into each other. So allow me the luxury of quickly merging them. Shrishti says, why isn't your product offering aggressive like the competitors? So I think you've partly answered that. Sneha says, Brio is no longer available. Any plans on the small car segment? And Chetan says, Honda should bring back a hatchback maybe. So in a sense, they're all kind of tied into each other.
So our product offering not being broad enough, I think like I answered, we have a philosophy to offer products which appeal to Honda brand kind of customers, and that's what we intend to do. Having said that, this is the feedback from a customer. I will definitely pass it on to my product planning team and tell them that you better start studying and don't come back and tell me the statement again. No pun intended, of course. Second is in terms of a small car or a hatchback. So hatchback we have a Jazz. And in terms of small car, I have had this debate multiple times, even when I was much younger in this company, and we used to get this question when we did not have a Brio earlier or even a Jazz. My understanding is customer typically is not looking for a small car. Customer is looking for an affordable car. And what is a good affordable car, a good affordable Honda that you can offer him is what the debate is all about. It's not about size. Ultimately a customer has an image of budget or price point in his mind, and if in that price point they're able to get a larger car, they're happier. So I think in that sense, hatch or no, I think Amaze serves a good purpose to be an entry Honda as of now. And interestingly, after we launched the second generation Amaze, I don't have the current data on hand right now, but I do remember in the first 6 to 12 months, almost 25% of our customers were first-time buyers. Imagine first-time buyers for a product like Amaze, not going for an A segment car, not going for a B segment car, not going for a B plus segment car, but their first car being the Amaze. So in that sense, a small car means a first car in that sense for a customer. And if 25% customers of Amaze are first time buyers, I think it's a good entry point for a car maker like us to be there as we talk now.
Oh, absolutely. It's been a huge success for you. There's no doubt about it. And we've already seen, I think, even during the lockdown phase, a lot of people showing interest in the Amaze because we find a lot of traction on our product page, which I just took up. In fact, we just saw the car and bike site, Amaze product page. It's been seeing a fair amount of traction, so it's understandable. Do you support the theory that outside of this lockdown finishing, the greater focus for a lot of buyers will be compact vehicles, more affordable compact vehicles?
You see, I would like to link it to what I said earlier. I think there appear to be multiple reports where, because of health concerns, people may want to shun public or shared transport for some time and want to be secure in their own mobility space. Having said that, I think where this statement or argument or opinion of entry cars or smaller cars catching traction is coming from is possibly it's a logical conclusion that somebody who was using a shared cab, if they want to buy a car, obviously they are not going to buy a City or a Civic to start with. Those customers may also exist, so they want to buy a small car. So, but like I said, I think there will be customers at most price points, and people who shift from taxi segment or shared car space into their own cars may not necessarily be doing it only for price. There could have been other considerations also. So I think it still remains to be seen what
So,
segments are going to get the major advantage of it.
so what about auto terrace? I mean,
Will
what
have
about the
a
used car
positive,
business?
rub-off effect is what I definitely believe.
And used cars? I mean, auto terrace, you see the same reason maybe giving a lot of push to used cars?
I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense, and I would tend to agree that ultimately for a customer, if he has to, you see, a car is a mobility and it's also a statement. That is your biggest possession that you are able to show to the outside world without making an effort. And therefore, if you have to move from a taxi into a car, you will not just buy a smaller car because it is giving you mobility, but you would still like to be seen as something better. So that human instinct is not going to change, in my opinion. And therefore, used cars, where you go for a used car where the price point is lower, but the car is a fancy looking car, is definitely a good option that people look at.
Okay, there was a question long back when we just started our chat before all our interruptions happened about Honda looking at the seven-seater space again. And I know that the CR-V satisfies that to a certain extent, but there's also a question from Gabbar Singh, if you please, who says to compete with Toyota, would you bring in something like the Odyssey? MPVs, let me sort of broad base that question a little bit. We've seen a fair amount of action suddenly starting once again in the MPV space. It's not just the Innova, but now you've had the Carnival drive-in as well. We've even had the Velfire, the V-Class. Do you anticipate that being a segment that gets any of your attention in terms of feasibility studies for the future?
You see, as of now, we do not intend to look at that larger car or seven-seater MPV. The reason being, it depends on again price points and the preferences of the customer in terms of seven seaters. So if without downplaying anything, but purely as a layman, if I am a customer and I have to look at a seven seater as a personal vehicle at a price point like that, I you can assume what level of customers they would be and what would typically be the usage of such a car, and that would bring you to the kind of demand eventually which one can look at. Having said that, if our studies indicate that there's a product which is required and we have one in our lineup, I mean, as a car manufacturer, like I said, going back to my earlier statement, we need to keep looking at customers' wishes and delivering products wherever it is possible for us to do so.
Okay, fair enough. There was a question or a reaction, I think, to what we were speaking in our previous question from Shivangi, who says what you're saying is correct, but what about the post-COVID situation where customers can only afford cars under 5 or 7 lakh rupees on-road price? And I think you partly answered that with the auto terrace conversation that we had. Gaurav says, will the city come with a diesel automatic? It's a very specific question, but I'm quickly trying to go through some of their questions. So you want to give me a quick answer to that?
So that I request you to wait till we launch, please, and please allow me to hold those details at the launch timing. Otherwise, you don't leave me much to say when I launch the car.
That's fair. And there was a question earlier about the Jazz, and I remember saying to you that I have two questions. One's about this and one's about the Jazz. So we spoke about the first part, but the Jazz. There's also the at the Tokyo Motor Show at the end of last year, we got to see the new generation of the Jazz for Japan, and of course also called Fit in some markets. What's the India plan for that car, if at all?
So the Jazz, I think we are now with the BS6 version, we are getting ready to launch the minor model change of the Jazz with a completely new look and new features. So I think we are still committed to the Jazz with this minor model change, and we'll discuss about the other model in Japan as and when the time arrives.
So it's not something that you're rolling out. It's just not happening in a hurry.
So in terms of timing, each market has its timing. Right now, we are more focused on the model change that we are about to launch soon, and the teasers of which you see on the digital media now. And that's what we would like to keep selling.
That's right.
As of now.
I think your website has been carrying a lot of that as well, and we've certainly been teased by it enough. My whole point always goes back to how I just want to drive these cars. So there's no escaping that for me. The other car that, again, I'm sorry I've missed who asked this question, but a couple of people I know asked the question about the Accord. There was a time when, and I think to a lot of people still, just like the City becomes like the benchmark car, almost like the generic for its segment. It was always the Accord in that segment, and you did come back with the Accord after a bit of a gap with the hybrid. But do you see? I know that segment itself shows no real exciting signs of growing, but for its legacy and for the sake of the kind of brand flagship role that it has played in the past, is the Accord something that you've closed the door on, or can we still hope for a new Accord?
You see, Accord is a model which is a hugely successful model, and I think we built our global car maker on the back of the Accord and the Civic, starting with the US market. And having said that, we do understand that Accord has a huge fan following and a big brand name in India. But given that, I think Accord was the car which everybody wanted it to be seen in at one point in time, in the D segment, if I can use the word. But now the complexion of the market has changed completely, and given the fact that we still in the product offering we used to offer the Accord Hybrid, which was a CBU, which was ordered based on confirmed orders, but the volume was not significant enough. Like I said, Accord is a significant enough brand, and as a flagship brand, I'm always happy to offer to the customer, depending on the demand being there for that kind of a product. And I mean, if required, one can obviously look at CBU also.
Yeah.
If that kind of numbers are visible.
And in any case, now you have that whole 2,500 units that you can look at in the homologation rule. But coming to that, and I know you mentioned Civic, so I want to obviously give some importance to that car. It's been here now for a little while, and it'll be complete. It's completed a year in the market. So we'll talk about the Civic. But very quick point, when it comes to this 2,500 units, what about hybrids? What about electrics? You've had a small experience with the few Accords that you mentioned, but is that a space that becomes interesting, especially now when people talk about not just personal mobility over public or shared mobility, but perhaps are also going to look more at being responsible, more sustainable sort of products that they want to buy? Do you think that cracks open a door for hybrid?
So you see, I think we were the first company to launch the hybrids in the country with the previous Civic, which we had almost 10 years ago, when nobody used to talk about hybrid. Honda globally has been making hybrids amongst the first companies in the world, if not the first, amongst the very first companies in the world to do that. And so technology is available. I think going forward, there's always a debate which keeps happening between how electrification is going to go.
Yeah.
And in that sense, hybrids do offer a very, very practical solution, or a first step to move towards completely electrified cars, because if you look at hybrids, they have three unique characteristics. Number one, they take care completely of the range anxiety, which electric vehicle causes. Number two is in terms of price points, it is still at more affordable price points compared to electrics, although they are at a disadvantage given the tax structure currently in India. And third is they also help you to build the manufacturing infrastructure for the electrics,
Yeah.
because they also use the motor, they also use the PCU, and they also use the lithium ion battery. And having said that, they help you to sustain the investments made in the current IC engine. So in that sense, they meet a lot of criteria, and therefore going forward, I think hybrids appear to be a good logical first step, in my opinion, to move toward electrified. And eventually, as we say, I think the current government, under the leadership of Mr. Modi, have a roadmap to move drastically away from thermal power to renewable sources of power, and take it to two-thirds or something by 2027. With that kind of a scenario, electrics on a national scale will start making more sense, in the sense of what we call a well-to-wheel, compared to hybrids. But in the current power generation scenario also, hybrids make a very sensible choice, in my opinion.
Oh, I'm with you on that, and I would love to see like a compact hybrid. I've even driven the hybrid city and Jazz in Japan, and to me, it makes complete sense to maybe even incentivize those. So I have a more drastic view on it, and I guess I can say that when it comes to the government, I think some of those fiscal policies that today may favor just pure electrics, in my opinion, should be extended to hybrids. But that's a whole separate conversation. Civic,
Thank you, sir.
no, I truly believe it, and I would love to see some of your hybrids drive in. A hybrid city or a hybrid Jazz would be just the perfect thing for our market. But Civic, we've talked about, and I would love to see a hybrid Civic too, by the way. Let's not single that out. 1 year in, again, a segment that many people said had dried up and completely disappeared, but you do see a lot of them on the road. How happy are you with the performance? What part of it has been in line with your strategy? What part has been not in line, or what part has taken you by surprise?
So, sorry, your voice broke off in between. You're talking about the Civic, right?
Yes.
Okay, so Civic, I think, in my opinion, is the best looking car in the market today. If I were to share a personal secret, so I drive, and my wife drives a Civic, but whenever we have to go out, she always prefers to go out in the CR-V, because it is a little more spacious and with a higher viewing angle. But I always prefer to go out in the Civic, and if I can get my hands on the wheel, I'm very happy. It's such a pleasure to drive. I think it's worked well for us. It's a low volume segment. I think whenever we have launched the Civic, we've had the same experience, irrespective of volume. So the last time around when we launched the Civic, I think we grew the segment and we had 60% market share. This time around, the same thing. The numbers are lower, and unfortunately, timing wise, the market was in a tailspin when we had launched the Civic. As a result of which, there were some issues. But having said that, I think starting with about 50%, we still have not really 50, but close to 50% market share in terms of whatever numbers we have. And in that sense, right now, the flagship model for us, I think it performs its responsibility beautifully. The product Civic for us.
All right, we're actually seeing shots of the car on the screen right now as we speak. And I completely agree with you. I think every time I have driven one of these as well, it turns heads. People turn around to see what car it is, and it certainly gets a lot of attention. And especially at night, I think some of the lighting, elements at night definitely look very striking. So you mentioned flagship. You do have the CR-V in the market too, but in many ways, do you consider the Civic to be the flagship?
You see, it's a matter of how you say. At price point wise, obviously CR-V is the flagship, but in terms of the fact that we are a sedan company and market presence in terms of numbers, it is the Civic which does it. So I think it makes a lot of sense for me to also call the Civic my flagship model in terms of brand as well. Okay. Okay. I think CR-V also has been an interesting product. When we launched it the first time around, we had 50% of the market share. The volumes were much lower. If I were to compare with some bigger SUVs, our numbers are much lower, but we have a dedicated set of customers who, whatever surveys we do of the CR-V, of the acceptors, the one thing which comes out very clearly is at least 40-45% of the customers have not considered anything else, just the CRV, which they went ahead and bought. And in that sense, CRV is a very uniquely urban SUV where it gives you the pleasure of driving a sedan as close to a sedan as possible with the feel of an SUV. And the new CRV, I drive it, I think the interiors are just so luxurious that no matter whether you're driving yourself or sitting in the rear seat, it's just a pleasure to be there. And in that sense, I think it's a good product to have in our lineup.
Okay, lots of people are also, of course, once again asking lots of SUV related questions. I'm assuming some of these people have come in a little bit later, so just want to acknowledge these questions, guys. But you know, when there's Vishant who's asking about competitors against cars like Nexon at one end or XUV 300, Venue or the Sonnet, we have talked about that, and so I implore you to go back and watch the video from the start. Same thing for Umar, who says, you know, can we expect a Honda in the sub 4.5 meter segment, costing anywhere between 17 and 22 lakh rupees, because that's a huge trend. Again, a segment that we spoke about. So I just want to acknowledge the fact that we have seen your questions, and Rajesh San has certainly spoken a little bit about all of this. Kishore has asked about small cars. They matter more when there's high traffic. So absolutely, we acknowledge everything that you're saying, and I have to quickly, before, I know that we've gone over on time, of course, because of all the breakages, etc. So before I eat into any more of your time, Rajasthan, the lockdown, we spoke at the start about how it has compelled you to learn a new way to do your business. But what about time spent at home? I mean, you mentioned a lot of people have taken up yoga and fitness, or your son is learning how to play the guitar. What about you? Have you done anything different on you?
So, you see, first thing is this time has been unique because all the four of us have been together in our house for such a long time for the first time in history. You see, I think some of my viewers may know, I was posted to Japan in 2015. And interestingly, at that time, what happened was four family members were at four locations. I was in Japan, my wife was in Gurgaon, my elder son who was studying in Narsi Monji was in Mumbai, and my younger son who's still in school, he's in Mayo College, he was in Ajmer. And from that, now we are together for 2 months. So it has been a good period to get to talk to each other, connect with each other. I think my elder son is now into a fitness startup. So he gets me to work out a little bit of whatever I can do so that I don't end up having a paunch by the end of the lockdown in the evening. And me and my younger son do that. I think as a family, we play board games in the evening. So one thing which is constant in the week is at least 3 movies all watched together, and at least board games 4 times a week in the night, be it Monopoly, Deal, or Sequence, or something else, even Ludo on the iPad. And the other thing is, I have a dog, a golden retriever. In fact, we had a beagle till last year, and unfortunately, because of a tumor in his spleen, he passed away just on Diwali Day morning last
Sorry to
year.
hear that.
But I was for some reason not very attached to him. I mean, he was very attached to me, but because of my travel and my office timings, etc. But with the new one, the golden retriever, his name is Kiro. Kiro means yellow in Japanese. So I am quite attached, and this time I spent to kind of spend time with him, take him for a walk, and generally I don't remember having spent this time with Bruno, my earlier beagle. So this has been a good time spent, making friends with Kiro, and I'm happy that he's friendlier to me, maybe if not more, but at least equivalent to most of my other family members, unlike Bruno earlier. So it has been good fun. And I've been doing various things I've not done. I used to cook myself in Japan, never did anything like that in India. And my family kept complaining. So my wife's birthday happened in the lockdown last in April. And I cooked lunch for everybody, and I stirred up some drinks. So that was good fun.
I've got a picture of that up here, by the way.
Oh, yes,
Yeah, I
yes,
can
yes,
see
you're right.
cards in the background. I have the food in the
That's
foreground,
a,
and I have to say that it looks appetizing enough for me to want to now request you to do this at some point when we get to meet.
Yeah, so it is, interestingly, these hotel chains, when you travel, you are members, and now everybody is trying to keep you engaged. And the recipe came up in one of those mailers. And I decided to take it on and cook those two dishes there, including the cocktail which is there. And the board game there is the sequence which I was mentioning earlier.
Mhm. No, and of course, when you were speaking earlier about, you said Kiro. Kiro is the name of the dog. Yeah,
Yes.
so we had those pictures up as well, and he is very handsome looking dog. I have to say, I'm a little biased when it comes to Labradors or Retrievers. In any case, I absolutely love them. So he's very very nice looking, and a lot of people are reacting. Nice dog. I'm seeing a lot of messages from people as well. So yeah, and a good point made by Karan is that dogs are also a great stress buster. So
Yes,
I
they are.
think having one in the house is always wonderful. They are the most
Retrievers can give you an inferiority complex. They are so social and
yeah.
so friendly to anybody. So Kiro would want to make friends with anybody. If I take him for a walk, he wants to make friends with street dogs. And sometimes I'm scared because the other dog may not be as friendly. So sometimes you get a complex as to why you can't be that social. But they're a great breed to have pay close to you and at home.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and they're wonderful for the family. I mean, we've had Labradors in the past, and so I can totally vouch for that. And I would love to meet him, by the way, since he's so friendly. But also, we did take up some pictures of your family as well, and a beautiful family. And it's nice that you're all getting quality time with each other. That's a good upside of the current situation. But belated birthday wishes to your wife as well from all of us.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
And as we sort of start to bring this to a close now, the key priority for you once the entire lockdown opens, and I won't say things are going to go back to normal anytime soon, but once we get as close as we can to that, key professional priority and key personal priority for you once that happens.
I think, okay, let me start first with the professional priority. I think it is very important. What I've realized now is, when things come to a stop, it requires a lot of energy to, if I can use the word, break the lethargy. Without people realizing the lethargy sets into the system and to get the momentum going back again is very important. And having said that, nobody has an experience of how this pandemic is going to play out, whether there's going to be another lockdown or there's going to be some other dose of greater social distancing, and therefore we have to get used to living in fits and spurts, at least in this financial year, and to get the entire chain used to working in this kind of a system effectively and efficiently, I think has to be my greatest priority, which includes my own teams, my network, and everybody within the company to be able to understand how to work in these kind of situations without taking the stress of uncertainty. We
Yeah.
have to learn to live with the uncertainty, at least in this financial year. On the personal front, it's just go out and enjoy. I think I would like to go out on a road trip. One thing I definitely need to go do is to go for an Italian dinner with my family. And maybe a lot of our friends, neighborhood friends, childhood friends, we have house parties which are great fun. So that is something I definitely miss, and definitely look forward to doing that as quickly as is possible once social distancing
Yeah.
is not really as required as it is now.
So you mentioned road trip, and my ears perked up because obviously it's totally the thing that I think I love to do the most, and especially with family. I already know you'll want to take the Civic because you're biased towards that car. But where would you go?
Yes. So you see, I prefer to go wherever the drive is good. In fact, going somewhere, I enjoy the drive more than the destination,
Yeah.
frankly. And in terms of destination, I am okay to go to any offbeat place.
Hmm.
If it is cooler, closer to the hills, I am happier. Otherwise, I am not one for very fancy locations. I am happier with offbeat places. If it is a historical place, I'm even happier. So
Okay.
that's what it is, without naming anything. So I'm kind of explored all the forts around Delhi within 5, 6, 7 hours of motorable distance and further. And I'm happy to go to any place again if required because the gap has been so huge.
That's fair. I get accused of that all the time, by the way, of enjoying the drive more than the destination. One last question I will take because I know we couldn't end up taking too many questions from the audience watching, and we've had the breakage in the bit in between. So I know we're sort of jumping back to this in a way, but a product question, if you will, and that's the last thing I will ask you. Dr. Sandeep Pillai is asking, can we expect Honda to also get in something like a DCT, or will you stick to CVTs? I will expand that question to just talk about the relevance or the growing relevance and need for automatics at every end of your portfolio. What is your view on that? And then, of course, you can answer his question too.
So you see, I would like to break down the question into two parts. Number one is, what is the need for an automatic? So historically in India, the customer has been extremely price conscious, and therefore, be it an automatic or including the price gap between petrol and diesel is something which has affected numbers.
Mm-hmm.
But now, given the traffic situation and the convenience which the automatics offer, I think in fact, I would believe that we were among the first mass market segments to offer an automatic with the first generation of the city at that point in time in India. And so now the market is shifting towards automatics irrespective of segment. Depending on the segment and the price differential, people opt for a technology. But again, is this typical debate like we talked about the small car? If the price point is not too big a concern, everybody would, I think, want to have a CVT because ultimately it's about convenience and driving pleasure. So the gear ratios and the way we set up the CVT is so close and it's so seamless that it's an absolute pleasure to drive our CVT. And ultimately, the technology that we need to offer as is decided by the price expectation of the customer and the experience that he gets when he's driving it. And that is these are going to be considerations going forward in terms of deciding what we would keep offering. But CVT is definitely something we'll keep offering.
Okay, that's good to know because I agree with you that it's very, very convenient and extremely comfortable, especially in our kind of city traffic. So good to hear that. And yes, I will, as I promised, let you go now because I know I've eaten into a whole lot of your time today. Because one thing I have established when I spoke with your colleagues and of course with you as well is that you are having extremely long work days, and so I must tell you I'm extremely grateful that we've got the time with you today. I know we talked about it for some time, and I'm very happy it's worked out today. So thank you for that.
No, thank you so much. I was extremely happy to be here, and thank you very much to all our viewers for all their questions and all their interest in the show. I hope I was able to answer most of the questions, if not satisfactorily, at least indicatively where it was possible. And once again, at the end of the show, I wish and pray for everybody to be healthy, safe. Times are difficult, but this too shall pass. And let's try and stay safe, healthy, and positive. Thank you very much.
Now, it's a very positive note to end on, and I can tell you that when it comes to products, a lot of us, and I don't say this just because it's you who's my guest today, and it's like the right thing to say, but we really look forward to new Honda product launches because we always have this expectation from Honda that it's going to do something for the segment, it's going to move the benchmark, or it's going to create some kind of a buzz, expand the space, and I don't say that lightly. I think a lot of my colleagues on this side of the fence will agree with me on that, and so especially a product like the City, the anticipation is huge. You've talked about how you will have the last car and the new one sort of driving alongside in the market. That's interesting. So lots to look forward to. We're right here to, of course, support you through all of that.
Right, thank you very much. Great fun to be here, and thank you very much. Really enjoyed talking to you.
Great. Our best wishes to you, your family, and of course your teams as well. And we'll continue to, of course, be in touch when it comes to all the news developments coming out of Honda India. So thank you again for your time today, and yes, please stay safe.
Yeah, thank you very much, Siddharth, and thank you, viewers, once again. Bye-bye.
All right, so we will have to say goodbye then to Rajesh Goel. He was speaking to us, and we had a couple of breaks in the conversation today because of power cuts at my end, but he very patiently hung on, spoke to us about a wide range of issues. I mean, I went into this expecting this to be a fairly in-depth conversation covering a lot of topics, but I think we ended up doing even more than that, and that's also because I think of just the sheer kind of experience and knowledge that he brings with his experience in the Indian automobile industry and the global industry as well. So you got a lot of insight into what's going to be happening with Honda. I think the big headline for us, of course, remains the City. A lot of you have said you like the way the car looks because we played out that video and maybe some of you hadn't had a chance to see it before. And then lots of other product news that we're going to continue to see action on. The BS6 rollout and the updates that are coming on some of the other cars, the WRV as well as the Jazz, for instance. So yeah, I think we're going to have a fair amount of action from Honda in the coming days. The diesel fans amongst us can rejoice because diesel will stay as well in the Honda portfolio, and so definitely a lot that will keep all of us at Car and Bike very busy too. So thank you so much for watching. Before I go, as is customary, of course, I will definitely show you who my next guest is going to be on this show. And in the meanwhile, as I have been saying in the last few days, if you are stepping out again because you are resuming work, please be extra careful. It goes without saying. Wear your masks. Please make sure that you're following all those protocols that we've all been drilling into each other over WhatsApp and every other form of late. And otherwise, even if it's for just the essentials, be extra cautious. Only step out if you must. Please wear your seat belts, of course, whenever you do that, along with those masks. And please take care of yourselves and your loved ones. And now I will go ahead and play out the teaser of who is on the show. And you know what? Actually, we are doing a show tomorrow itself. So it's not long that you'll have to wait for this one. And without much further ado, then, it is this teaser. Please take care of yourselves. Bye bye.